was attacked today by a faceless coward, and freedom will be defended. And I remember as our family sat on that couch, I can still envision the room that we were in, and we watched those images of falling towers, and we watched that plane over and over again, the replays, strike the Pentagon, the heart of America's defense. We just kept sitting there looking at each other saying, I cannot, just like everybody else in the nation, we could not believe what we were watching. And I remember watching my boy, this righteous anger building up in his chest. You could almost feel his anger in the room. And I remember some of the things he said. But I'll tell you something, the thing that I remember most is what affected him the most deeply in everything that went down that day. And that was the men and women of Flight 93. Because see, he realized, our family realized that morning that in 3 attacks on our nation, on that dreadful morning, our government was helpless to do anything to stop one of those attacks. But on Flight 93, 40 regular citizens stood up, took their place in history, and stopped what potentially could have been the most damaging attack we would suffer on that morning. And I remember the look in his eyes as the story started coming forth in the couple days later about Todd Beamer screaming that famous battle cry, "Let's roll." I remember him thinking and saying to us that he had to do something for his nation, but before I go any further, I have to back up just a minute. See, the most important thing I'll ever tell you about my son is that he gave his life to Christ at a very young age. And it's important for 2 reasons. The first one is, I know, and his father knows, and everyone who knew Aaron knows, that before that helicopter hit the ground on August 6, 2011, God scooped Aaron up in his arms and took him home to be with him eternally, and we will be with him again one day, because we believe in that same God.
That's right.
But another really important thing about knowing about that commitment Aaron made to God at a young age is that it gave him a discernment that was very uncharacteristic of young boys. And what I mean by that is Aaron was always able to delineate evil from good. He was always able to call it what it was. He never danced around in the gray areas. It was black or it was white. It was truth or it was a lie. And I'll tell you something, I think in our culture today, not here, because you're the patriots, I always find myself preaching to the choir. I wish so bad
Yes, I can see you.
that people who are throwing this country away just one time would look me in the face and let me share this message, but they're never here. But I'm going to tell you, the reason I believe there's such apathy about evil is because if we actually acknowledge evil, we are forced to do something about it. And most people just don't want to play that role. But that's not who Aaron was. So by the time Aaron was 8 years old, he would tell anyone who'd listen that one day he was going to be a Navy SEAL. He got that idea one day working on the farm with his dad when his dad said, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings out here, but his dad told him that, SEALs were the most elite fighting force. And so Aaron's like, well, if that's the best, then that's what I want to do. And he got it in his mind. He had that warrior's heart. He was creative with it. His father and I always like to tell people, Aaron didn't become a warrior after he became a Navy SEAL. He became a Navy SEAL because he was a warrior. That's who he was born to be. But I'll tell you, by the time Aaron reached his senior year in high school, he obliterated the ACL in his left knee in a football practice one afternoon. And it seemed like that dream was gone. But he was a fighter. To make it very quick, he got that thing replaced, rehabbed it, and is 6'4" tall. For those of you who have an athletic background, you'll be impressed by this. He was running a 4.40 6 months after that surgery. And so he knew he was going to go on and become a Navy SEAL. He was going to go straight into the SEAL Challenge program out of high school. He knew he could do it again. All inspired, ready to go, looking online all the time, watching videos about it. And then just before school let out, his senior year, he was playing a pickup game of basketball with some friends, and he obliterated that knee again. Obliterated it. Blew out his ACL. He thought that it would be a setback, that it would just be another year of rehab before he could go fulfill his dream. But it didn't end up that way. Instead, the surgeon came out of this time, the surgeon sat down and said, Mr. and Mrs. Vaughn, I have something to tell you. It's not good. I couldn't fix Aaron's knee. There was nothing I could do. There's too much damage in there. There's not enough bone left to attach anything to. So your son is going to live the rest of his life somewhat handicapped. He'll never be able to do anything physical again without the use of a special brace. So just at that moment in time where Aaron was supposed to go out and live this dream he'd had his entire life, everything shifted, everything changed. Until the day we're here to remember, September 11th, 2001. A few months later, Aaron came home on his 21st birthday, and he said, Mom and Dad, I stopped by the Navy recruiter's office on my way home from work, and I joined the SEAL Challenge program. And his father said, well, son, you know, we're not a discouraging family, but his dad said, well, son, you'll never make it. You have no need. And he said, I'll make it, Dad. I know it's what I'm supposed to do. And I said, you know, being the good mom, I said, well, son, does the Navy know about your knee? And he said, well, of course not, or they wouldn't have let me try. So we started the whole thing like that, you know. And I always thought in the back of my mind, he'll never make it. I wanted him to for his sake and didn't want him to for my sake. 157 men started BUD/S Class 248 in 2002, and 7 finished, and Aaron Vaughn was one of them. Not only that, his name is on a wall that reads, "First time, every time." He's one of the rare men in history who completed every evolution required of him in BUD/S the first time he tried it. And I say that, you know, I always say Aaron Vaughn would reach down and smack me on the head if he thought I was out here bragging about him, because he was the most humble man you would ever meet, ever. I don't say it to brag on Aaron, I say it to brag on God, and also to tell you that because it was so unreasonable that Aaron achieved what he achieved, that he made it all the way to SEAL Team 6, that we knew as a family Aaron was doing exactly what he'd been created to do on August 6, 2011, when our family got that dreaded phone call to let us know that there had been a helicopter shot down in the Wardak province and 30 Americans were dead, and our son was one of them. That's a life-altering moment, and what it does is, I'll tell you this, what it does is it makes me live every day with a desire and a boldness to speak the truth in a way where there's absolutely no fear involved in it. Because my son's gone, if that makes sense. I don't need to deal with the BS anymore. I don't need to pretend or be kind or be nice. And I'm going to tell you what we've got right now. We've got an ideology in our White House that is dangerous to this nation. As everybody up here has said, on 9/11, our White House would not acknowledge the danger of this enemy. And all these years later, a new administration still will not acknowledge the danger of this enemy, the Islamist. We even, as Dinesh said a minute ago, I mean, could you honestly believe it when you heard the man say last night that ISIS is not Islamic? What do you think? See, at some point we have to reach an attitude that the intentions of this man in our White House are not good towards our country, and we must get rid of him. We must get him out of our White House before he takes this nation down. Like I said, I'm going to try to be brief, so I want to tell you something. I talk a lot when I go around the country talking about all the things Aaron believed in, that he believed in American exceptionalism, that boy would have gotten his butt torn up if anybody ever said the Pledge of Allegiance or sang the national anthem without him standing at attention with his hand over his heart. That boy knew every day of his life that he was a blessed human being to have been born in America where men are free. And he knew what Ronald Reagan said, you know, about freedom. That it wouldn't be something that we would pass through some genetic pool to our ancestors, that it would have to be fought for and defended, just like our founders knew. It would always have to be defended. He knew that he was born to play his role in history, and I'll tell you something about him that I believe about every man or woman who's ever strapped up a pair of combat boots. I believe that they believe in their hearts The only thing they request of the society they leave behind, if they should die on that battlefield, is that someone else will rise up in their place and fight for this country so that their death is not in vain, so that the greatest land ever known to man will still exist when their children are grown having children. You know, like I said, Aaron fought for a lot of things, but I want to end tonight today by telling you what he did not fight for. He did not die or fight to watch big government and bloated bureaucracies cripple small business men and women with punitive taxation, with endless red tape and burdensome regulations. He didn't die to watch his nation become enslaved in debt to other nations who do not have our best interests at heart. He did not die to watch his people become impoverished and hopeless. That's not what he gave his life for. And he sure didn't die to watch the Bureau of Land Management have rights to bear arms against U.S. citizens. No, he didn't die for that. And I'll tell you one last thing. He did not fight night after night after night, chasing down and capturing vile terrorists hell-bent on destroying everything we know and love, destroying everything you see in your perimeter. He didn't fight and die chasing them and capturing them to watch his commander-in-chief turn 5 of them loose. He didn't do it. That's not what he gave his life for. I believe that every man and woman who's ever strapped up a pair of boots for this nation has done it for one reason. Because we believe, like Ronald Reagan said, that a representative republic is the most noble form of government ever devised by man. And it's worth fighting for. Us Americans will continue to send our children to foreign battlefields. But the one thing we demand is that your goal is victory. And that your purpose is to defeat those who mean to harm us. If not, you leave our kids at home. And my last thing I want to say to you is, I heard this quote not long ago, really touched my heart. Ours is the only national anthem that ends with a question mark. It's up to every generation to answer that question. We have to decide today how it will be answered while we're here with breath to fight. Thank you.